Yeah, no, that's great. I have to stay at this spot where I am now, but I'm going to just let the colleagues receive the link because they are already asking for it. Let's do
Okay.
this.
Okay.
We can't carry on without them. I'm just sending them. Say we are live now. Technology, George.
My goodness me. it's an absolute challenge. Oh, man.
Yeah, we
Oh, I
do
tell
very
you.
well. I can see that Coach Sash is joining us. Yeah, let me once again welcome the guests. This is the moment we've been waiting for. I said, my name is Sam Zima. I am going to be your host. I will be coordinating this conversation with my fellow coach, Coach George Mutendadzamera, and he has been tasked with the responsibility of researching the OSKAR Coaching Model. A very interesting model indeed. Let me remind you that this is a COMETSA Radio Podcast, and the program is called COMETSA or Coaches Learning Forum. This is the forum at which we teach each other, we share, and we grow together. We are the mind, the journey, the destiny. We apply our minds to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Our show is based on the principle of the idea. We inform and entertain. We develop and educate. We empower and support. We associate and network. That is the idea. Greetings to you, George, and welcome to your show.
Well, my show. Well, thank you very much, Sam. I'm claiming this one, right? No, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And in our field, it's continuous learning, and that's how we grow as coaches and help others well. So it's an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How was your weekend? How was your weekend, George?
Very good, actually. I must admit, ESCOM has been so kind and good that my opinion is being revised slowly. But
That's good news. That's
hopefully
good
they
news.
won't. But really, it's been useful to have power all the time. But we do understand the challenges that the business.
Yeah. Beautiful. Coach George, let's start by just telling people who Coach George is. Maybe just slowly go through your perspective and end up by telling us how did it come that you became a coach? If you can just give us your countdown of your professional career, and then we will then go into the actual conversations around OSKAR Coaching Model. Who is George? Who is Coach George?
Thank you very much, Sam. It's been quite a journey, and always when I talk to people about the road I've taken, the first thing I say is God has been merciful, and so to be where I am is not just because of me; it's because God who looks after me. So I always put that up front. Where I started off my journey as an attorney, practiced law for 10 years, and so I'm a lawyer by training, you can tell. And joined corporate as a legal advisor, and also in charge of what then was a kind of new discipline. It was called corporate affairs then. And in that role as legal and corporate, we had quite a number of exciting things, mergers, acquisitions, demergers, all sorts of things. I got a bit itchy again and moved into marketing, but in the same business. So I learned a little bit about marketing, and it's been pretty useful. And one thing that I can tell people is, listen, is that I think as people progress in life, it's not so much what you went to study, but it's how you're able to immerse yourself in whatever situation you are. Because I think university and all that help you to kind of think your way around situations. And so I ended up doing marketing. I did compliance. I sat on a number of boards. I chaired a few of them. And then I found, shall I call it the love of my life, coaching.
Yeah. Was this while you were still employed, or was this after you had?
Whilst I was employed, in fact, it's a funny story because someone in HR saw what I didn't see, which I tell people, with coaching, your coach can see things in you that you don't see yourself. And this guy saw something that I didn't see in myself. He's like, he said, listen, there's this thing called coaching. I think you should go and try. So I actually started studying coaching whilst I was out there, and then took a leap of faith into coaching. And I work with executives, leaders, business people, and I also do life coaching. And then I hooked up with a fellow called Bob Proctor. He's also late, and I worked with him as a consultant on issues around self-awareness, self-confidence, and I still facilitate some of his programs. And then in the process of all this, I found within me to write a book, which was based on a series that I was doing on a radio program, Radio Pulpit. We were doing success episodes, helping people think through life. And then we put that together as a book, and we published it. I published the book in June. It's called Winning the God Way. It's really about goal setting, mastering goal setting, and issues about taking responsibility and being self-aware. That's what the book talks about.
Wow.
I worked with a coach. Having qualified as a coach, I started working with a coach. I engaged a coach, and I thank her all the time because having worked with the things that I have been able to achieve have been down really to the individual getting me to sit up and look inside myself a bit more. So I'm forever grateful for that. And
Great stuff. Let me acknowledge our colleagues online. For those who are joining us for the first time, you might hear me and George in the studio, but we have got our colleagues in the background engaging with us, and most of them have been here where George is, and some are still coming. So it's a learning community. And I really appreciate their presence. Coach Sesh, I can see you. Coach Rabula, Coach Sedi, greetings to you. Coach Loazi, Coach Dumi. And let me also acknowledge Coach Dolores. I know she's in Switzerland, and I'm glad she could join. And she has just apologized to say that she's going to be leaving us at 1900 hours. I'm sure she has got other engagements. I hope, Coach Dolores, you are having great time there in Switzerland. We are glad you remembered that today is the Coaches Learning Forum, and that's why you joined us. And anyone else that I haven't called your name because perhaps I can't read your name because the title be opposite your page or your picture is just letters or numbers. So please drop us a note in the chat box, and say hi so that we can recognize you. But also feel free to invite other coaches out there. This is their platform. This is a platform where we talk as coaches, and of course there will be other people who are not necessarily coaches, but they are interested in the topic of coaching. I'm glad to hear that you are having a fabulous autumn day there in Switzerland, Coach Dolores. We wish you many more happy days over there until you're back home. Yes, George. Talking about Mr. Proctor, Bob Proctor, a great man. Those who have not read the life story of Coach Bob Proctor, please do so. He is a fan of Napoleon Hill. He mentions that he has read Think and Grow Rich thousands times. Actually, he used to show his book copy that is worn out. And unfortunately, we lost him. Is it 2020 or 2018?
It was last year. It was last year. Yeah, last year.
Yeah, but he left as a gift. I think the lady that is his partner continues with their institute.
Right.
But a great man. It must have been wonderful, George, to be mentored by somebody like him. And how was it, and how did you come to be involved with Bob Proctor?
So when I started learning about coaching, then I began reading around many, shall we say, giants in the field, and stumbled on him, connected with a fellow who worked with him. And to cut a long story short, I ended up in Toronto there in Canada, training with him. And the man was so focused and helped me around issues around self-awareness. And I think we've always, growing up, we are told that success is just money. But then you then realize that actually there's a lot of wealth in just being yourself, valuing who you are, what you are, and where you're going. And then the rest falls into place. And so when we work with people, really the message I try and get across is who are you and what do you want to be? And the more you chase that.
Yeah, carry on, George.
So as I said, the more you understand yourself, the more you chase yourself, the more you don't have to apologize for who you are. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. Who are you? And understanding that is gold. And so that's, you can hear that's how I love coaching. If I can get somebody to value themselves, chase their goals, and be who they are, then my day is done.
Yeah, and Bob Proctor was a proponent of coaches working on themselves. In other words, developing themselves on an ongoing basis.
As I said to you yesterday, Seb, when we had a discussion, I think when an individual gets to a place where they think they know it all, that's the end of that individual. Life is a journey of learning every day. And each person you speak to will speak into you, teach you something that you didn't know. Always be curious. Find out what other people are doing. And that's how you get better. No one has arrived, and no one ever will arrive. We are on a journey.
Yeah, the Conscious Leadership Group, in their Conscious Leadership Model, one of their 15 commitments is called learning by curiosity. So as a leader, if you are not curious to learn new things, you are in trouble. Let me also acknowledge our friend, Coach Dr. Chuma Mangiza, who has just entered the studio as well. Welcome, my brother. This is it, and you are inducted. You are part of the community of coaches. From now onwards, we will look forward to hear your contribution as well. George?
Before we go ahead, can I just say something about my colleagues who I've associated with over 2 years now is COMETSA. I really am truly grateful for each and every one of them. All the interactions I've had with them. I have learned from each and every one of them. And I hope I will continue to associate with you guys and learn from you, because that's really been such an important part of this journey.
Absolutely, George. And I can tell you, when I look in the horizon there, I can see we are going to be even much more busier than people can imagine. So we are sharpening the saw. I think it's one of the Steve Harvey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Keep on sharpening the saw, because you don't know when we will need you to be deployed. So, and we deploy each other. And I think there is a reason why we are doing what we are doing, because the response that we are getting is quite very encouraging. So we are excited. Thanks, George, for acknowledging fellow coaches. And I think the same goes for all of us. George, you and I, we spoke intensively about the book behind OSKAR. This OSKAR Coaching Model is chapter 10 of the book, and I like the way the 2 authors presented it, and they say, meet OSKAR. I was like, wow, that looks like you're meeting somebody called OSKAR. How has the research been up to so far, before we delve into the nitty-gritties of it, Coach George?
Right. So, as I said yesterday, going through models. So each time my colleagues present, whether it's the GROW model or me doing OSKAR, each time we are forced to go and do a bit of research in the background to understand the why that model is there and the benefits that it brings. So this whole exercise has actually been an exercise in learning and getting to understand models that otherwise I probably would never have gotten into. I started off with brain-based coaching. And as I said to you, it also talks around solution focus. And so there are similarities in the OSKAR coaching model with the model that I actually did with my first coaching stint, as it were. I've since gone through other models, but that one is very similar in terms of its focus on the solution. Why are we here? What do you want to achieve? What's your objective?
When I listened to you even yesterday when we were talking, but also looking into the book, and for those who haven't seen the book, it's called Focus Solutions.
Solutions Focus.
What is it called? Focus Solutions, right?
The Solutions Focus, making coaching and change simple.
Yeah, Solutions Focus. You can get it on Kindle. It's a very, very good read. And what I like about it, George, is I wanted to get the book and get straight into OSKAR. And as I was looking at it, I realized that no. George must deal with OSKAR. I'm going to read the prior pages before I get to chapter 10, because there is a build-up to where they say that now that you have understood our book, we decided to come up with the OSKAR model. Let me leave it to you, George. It is your show. Take us through it.
Okay, so let's talk the OSKAR coaching model. But can I put a little bit of background to this? Because if you're not a coach and you're listening, you may want to. What is this coaching all about? Why do we coach? Why should I actually spend time with a coach? Why should I invest in it? And I posted something last week around what is coaching, and I look at it as improving the quality of lives by elevating the quality of thoughts. You see, coaching, we are who we are by the very thoughts that we carry. And Bob Proctor was an expert, really spent hours on that. And he talks about the thoughts that you carry every day are what brought you to where you are now. There's a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's way back early 1900s. That talks to how you are the product of all the thoughts that you have. Now, it's not the thoughts that you like to have had. It's all the thoughts that you had, the positive and the negative. And therefore, coaching helps you to then find quality thoughts that then move you forward. Because some thoughts are negative and they will impact you negatively. So when sitting with a coach, as I said, this lady who coached me, and the product of her coaching is the book that I did, the facilitation certification that I got, the ICF credentialing that I got. I didn't mention that I sit on the ICF South Africa board as a non-executive board member. And I would never have done that had I not gone through coaching. And so coaching helps individuals to define and take action towards the realization of their visions. What's your vision? Let's define it. Then let's take action to become it. Because the majority of people in this world do have visions, do have goals and objectives. But there's a difference between knowing and doing. And your coach is there to get you to know and then get you to do. And it becomes an accountability partner. And a good coach is kind of unapologetic to try and get you to do what you must do to better yourself. And so I really like to start with that, because when you're then now talking about OSKAR and other models, it's the why of it is that it's your journey. You are going to get better. But here is a tool, and I look at myself as a tool. Here's a tool that can get you to be a better person. And so I like to start with that as a coach.
Yeah.
So yes, as we get into OSKAR, can I just also say one thing? I know people say, "Oh, George now is wandering off," but this is very important. There's the former CEO of Google is a gentleman called Eric Schmidt, and if you have time, anyone who's listening, go and Google Eric Schmidt, SCHMIDT, bright fellow. And he was invited to be the CEO of Google when Google was starting. And a board member said to him, "Eric, I think you need a coach." And he says, "No, I'm an experienced coach, MD. I've been around the block. I know what I'm doing." Long story short, he agreed. And today, he's the biggest proponent of coaching. And Google, who are A types, did a project in determining what are the values that managers should have. And the top value there was that a good manager is a good coach. And that background then feeds us into OSKAR. Because when we're talking OSKAR, we're talking about coaching at the workplace.
Yeah.
Primarily. But as you coach you can use this as a model to coach even outside of the workplace. Okay, so coaching is not needed all the time, but when you do need it, this is one model to start. So what is OSKAR? So it's an acronym. O is outcome. So we'll delve into what we mean by outcome. And S is scaling. And K is a know-how. And A is affirm and action. I'm going to dwell a little bit on affirm and action. And then review is the last part of that OSKAR. It's also OSKAR Awards, eh? Not. All right, folks, don't take that one seriously. Okay, so I think, as I said, that the Google project was called Project, I think it was Project Oxygen. I could be wrong there. But it established that coaching is a vital skills for leaders and managers in the workplace. And so when used in combination with positive feedback, reinforcement, I mean, you create superstars. But when coaching started, I think, being taken more seriously in the workplace, it was more viewed as therapy. Oh, George isn't doing too well, so we need a coach to kind of get him off his bum.
It even had a negative connotation for people who are being coached then.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Why are they asking me to be coached? I know what I'm doing. I'm a good accountant. But as we have gone more into it, I think more people are more realizing that actually it's a tool for growth. It's a tool for you to become better. But there are still organizations right now and people who still regard it as therapy. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that, experiences that we've had around that. So OSKAR, O is for outcome. And what do we mean by outcome? So the whole aim of coaching is to move someone from where they are to where they want to be. I like to use, we help people to be, to do, to have what they want through coaching.
Yeah.
So when you're starting that conversation with your coachee or client, whatever word you want to use, the starting point is, what do you want to achieve in the short, medium, and long term? What do you want to do? So sometimes the simpler examples are better. So you want to move a guy from production manager to production director, for instance, and then sit him down and say, here's a coach, work with him to move you from there, because then that puts you in a different grade. And so as you start that conversation with the individual, obviously, we call that stage the contracting stage. What is it why are we here? Why are we here? What does the coach...
I always like referring. You will probably notice that I like Steve Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective
Absolutely.
and one of the habits there is starting with the end in mind. So when you talk about right at the beginning, asking people, where are we heading to? That starting with the end in mind. So will you agree that is one of the questions that at the beginning coaches will not expect, but when you ask them, they get very excited because you are already talking to them about the outcome.
What do you want? In fact, I must be honest with you. I had the honor of meeting Mr. Covey, and I had a picture with him, which I treasured for ages and somehow misplaced, but I know it's in this house somewhere. And if there's need for evidence, he was a giant. He was an absolute giant, and So you start with the outcome. What do we want to achieve? So, and that contracting stage is twofold, right? So it's in this whole coaching engagement. What do we want to achieve? So that's the key. Then you are saying, with each session that you have, in this session, what do we want to achieve? So there's the whole overall picture, the picture of we want to get to Mars. But in each coaching session, what do we want to achieve? So that's important to contract that so that you don't derail yourself and get lost in the discussion as you start.
How do you align that particular outcome of a session, George, with the overall outcome of the coaching program? And secondly, what do you do when the client then gives you the outcome that is totally direct opposite to the overall outcome of the coaching program?
Okay, so let's start back with our production manager, right? So as you're starting the engagement, he is saying to you, I want to be the production director of this business. And that's the big picture. As you go into session 1 or session 3 or whatever the session it is, you are saying, okay, at the end of today's session, what do you want to walk out of here with? Oh, so he says, I want clarity on the qualifications, the academic qualifications that I need to get that overall big picture. So that then guides the discussion to say, as this man leaves this room, he has got guidance on the academic qualifications that he needs for his big picture of being a production director. And therefore, it's his show. Remember, you're not telling him what to do. And so in that discussion, if actually something that you hadn't discussed comes up, well, I think be curious and okay, where is this coming from? Why is it coming? And because it might actually lead you to something that both of you had overlooked in terms of where he wants to go. So it's more very much a dance, isn't it, when you're talking when you're coaching? You don't shut things down to say, oh no, this guy is now veering off the path. Be curious and say, why is it coming in this thing?
So it's like the broader objectives of the coaching program. They're like the rail lines, and you walk in between the lines. As long as the person doesn't go extreme outside the lines and say, no, I now want to be the CEO of this company.
Totally different briefs there. Yeah. I think you put it quite well. The rails, I suppose. That's great. And as you're talking outcomes, Sam, you're helping the guy to clarify in his mind. Bob Proctor always used to say, everything starts off with a picture in your mind. Everything is a picture in your mind. So if I say to you door, you don't go D-O-O, you see a door. If I say to you production, you see something. So it starts with a picture in your mind. And so what is that picture? Then encourage that guy then with questions. What if? Imagine that you have achieved this. Now he is sitting there, and as we said about Mr. Covey, Neville Goddard says, on the wish fulfilled. His wish fulfilled. So if he wants to be a production director, get him to focus on what does that look like and how does that feel. So it's not just seeing it. You must actually feel the joy of being a director. If you can get him to feel that, then you're driving his energy towards actually working on the actions.
I'm feeling.
All right.
I'm feeling the
let's
sensing the language, George. I'm sensing the language of outcome here. Is there something like that? The terms you are using,
outcome.
I can very much group them into the language of outcome, the picture in mind, the this and that and that. And for us as coaches, will you say that it is almost like a discipline we must have, that when we talk about the goal setting and the outcome, there's a certain language we need to master so that the clients get exactly the message.
Yes. Because why he's come to you is asking you to help him hold his hand towards that outcome, that desired outcome. And one way of helping him is actually to get him to really fall in love with it, if one wants to use a better word, to imagine himself in that. And so his imagination at that stage is really key. And so the language that even the questions that you ask, if you're going to ask imagination questions, let's play with the idea that you are now the director. Let's imagine that those are imagination questions that gets the guy into the outcome mode. He is there now. The wish is fulfilled, as Neville Goddard says. Okay,
Coach
so that's the O.
Coach Dolores has got a point to say here, just for your comment. I imagine that in a 60-minute session, you can only contract and coach for one outcome and not multiple outcomes. George?
Certainly for myself, I like to less is more. I know some people will say to you they can actually talk chase a few more outcomes than one. I prefer literally to say, once we have contracted, I should have mentioned is that discussion, you should also be asking, how will we know that our session has been beneficial? How will we know that we are where we wanted to start off with? How will we know that? And so we say the production director wants to have his academic qualifications cleared as that. That for me becomes then, as we leave that session, I wouldn't want them to go into academic qualifications, the disciplinary processes that need, etc. Now you have 6 things in one session of 1 hour. Now I'm speaking as my own personal experience. I really do like to focus on the one. And then when we do come back, we do another. And or break it down to say, for 30 minutes, folks, let's talk about academic qualifications. Once we're done with that, let's move for the next 30 minutes. Let's talk about what behaviors do we need from you? And then we put behavior. So we leave. By the time we leave, we've got one more. We've got 2 as opposed to 1. But we've broken down and separated them. And as I said, that's a personal approach that I would do. So scaling is then getting your client, the coachee, then to rate where they are in relation to attaining the ideal state. I want to be the production director. Where are you today in relation to that? And so on a scale of 0 to 10, where are you? If he says a 3, okay, so you know the gap. If he says a 6, you know the gap. But because you're the workplace and you the manager of this guy, you can also weigh in with your own rating, isn't it? He says he's a 7. I think he's a 3. But even if you're not a manager, you want to take a bit of time here to say, for you to succeed, maybe you may want the view of, so I'm an outside coach. I would say maybe you may want the view of the current director, or you want the view of someone else, so that rating is compared to something. Because that is so important in options that you're now going to use to get him to where he wants to be. So if he lies to himself that he's an 8, and you say, "Oh, okay, so all I need really is the academic qualification," then that's a disaster, because he needs behaviors, he needs being polished, he needs the ability to speak, so all those things are factored in. So where are you on that scale? Okay, so that's scaling.
George, you as a coach, do you work out where you think this person is and keep it to yourself, or do you also share with the client to say, "I would have thought that you are actually a 7, but you've just rated yourself 5," and I guess that then could open another discussion.
Open. Get your view and tell him, "Listen, I actually think you're a 6. From what you have spoken to me about, I've gotten into this company because your HR director has asked me to coach you, and this is the information I have. From there, I think you have a 7. And he says, "Oh, no, I'm a 5 for this." It's important to air that. Because it's not an exact science, right? It's because as you then go, you will find, why is he saying a 5? Well, because
it's just an opinion. It's an opinion of self, and you as a coach will then give them an objective opinion because you are looking at the client from outside. And I like your idea of saying, go and ask somebody else. Then you actually now having 3 inputs that you can look at.
This is somebody who, listen, I hear you talk a lot about this marketing director. You have a lot of respect for him. What does he think you are? How would he rate you? You see what I'm trying to get at? That input may actually kind of get him to look up and say, "I actually thought I was a 3, but the guys around me think I'm a 5." I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, Coach Sedi is just affirming the point you raised, saying that here, recommend to the client to measure where they are and where they desire to be. Wow, that's a good one. So here there are 2 measurements: where you are and where they desire to be at this point of scaling. That's interesting. I guess you will keep this to keep on coming back to it, Coach Sedi and Coach George.
Where are you? Yeah, because then where are you starting from, so that you can get to your point? So it's good to get that rating and to understand exactly. That's the clarity about the outcome, right? Where do we want to be? Yeah.
So you're saying, George, this scaling is not scientific. It's just the perception that you make of each other as a coach and a client.
Yeah. So it's also okay. It's not scientific. It's an opinion by the individual of where he thinks he is, bearing in mind. Remember, we started with outcome. And so, where do you want to be? What do you want to achieve, etc., etc. He's got that whole picture of the ideal place where he wants to get to. Where is he in relation to that? That's why the scaling is important. So getting outcome right is absolutely critical, and then he measures that himself against that.
Wow, great stuff.
Okay, and then the K stands for know-how. This is, they call it the 3rd state, right? The coach helps. Here is now the coach is helping the coachee to understand what skills and resources are required to achieve the stated goal. All right. What? So back to the production manager. Let's now go into the know-how. And now we're asking the individual. Let's go into the know-how. Sorry, I'm trying to get something there. So the question becomes, what do you need to learn? If I'm sitting with somebody across me, I would say, okay, John, what do you need to learn to be production director? Oh, I need this academic qualification, and I need to study with this university of this other and the other. Okay, so that's number one. You need that. But to do that, what support do you need from, or I need support from my HR director for the company to fund the sponsorship, or I can do it. I can fund it myself. Whatever the story is, but whose support do you need to move forward? And what new skills do you need to invest in? And where can you learn this? And it's really taking a full understanding of, okay, to be a production director, my friend, academics want to, the job descriptions have those, right? Preferably a person who does this, who does that. It's there. But there are also behaviors, Sam. And I always emphasize that when I'm talking to executives. So say you want to be a production director.
Coach George, as I listen to you unpacking this model, I can see you coming from the angle of forward-looking, where there is no crisis or a problem. You coming from, so you are actually taking a coach to achieve something in the future. But as I remember very well, reading the book and also going through the model, the two gentlemen say that they established this model when they were resolving a particular problem. And why they came up with the focus solutions model was that they found that people spend too much time trying to understand what caused the problem. And then they say that is not taking you anywhere. They believe very strongly that focus on what you need to do to resolve the problem rather than wasting time trying to analyze where is this problem coming from. What is your view on that?
Yes, see, if you go to for therapy, they're going to ask you, so your parents did this, what did you do when you were 3 years old, and all 5, and everyone digs in to find out what brought you to where you are today. Why is your paradigm the way it is, and everybody now. But that's not what we're talking about here. We are talking about a solution focus. We are saying we are where we are. You are a production manager today, and you want to be a production director. How do we get you there? That's the discussion that this is taking care of. This is not crisis management. This is no. We take you as you are, and we want to move you forward. And therefore, any time spent looking into why 3 years ago you weren't promoted, really it's not going to achieve anything. On your own, you must remember that the coachee on his own is going to reflect, right? On his own. You'll have time to reflect on some of these things. And that's when he probably says, I was overlooked that time. Why? Because maybe they thought I was immature or whatever. He can discuss that. But this is not the essence of OSKAR is get him to where he wants to go.
Beautiful.
Okay, so the fourth one is affirm and action. Affirm and action. Can I just say, and I'm going to digress a little bit from my script here, and to say that affirmation of whether it's your children, affirmation of your workmates, your workers, your whoever, is a profound to move people forward, to embed behaviors, to encourage, to motivate, to inspire. Affirmation is huge, and
we all need
not
it,
many. Eh?
We all need it, Coach George.
Because we don't get enough of it. When you're coaching people, okay, so you want to be production director, okay, you need to do this, okay. But there's a time to actually say, John, to be where you are, you've done very well. You've achieved, you've got very good skills in this way, you've got those skills in there, and use that to drive the individual forward. Because our job as coaches is we're not really in the picture. it's a guy who starts off wanting to be a production director, and he ends up, he's a production manager today. He ends up as a production director in a year or 2 years' time. And he doesn't need to go around and tell the story that actually, you know what, George was involved in my journey. No, he doesn't need to do that. And so it's his journey entirely. You're a tool to get him there. But in the process,
Coach George, before you move on, let's just share with you some interesting perspectives in the chat here from the coaches. Coach Serge says that, remember, science itself is flawed. The experienced coach can do a pretty accurate appraisal of where the person is. Very interesting perspective there.
Excellent observation. Excellent. Thank you very much. You can actually do it. And the more experienced the coach is, the better they are rated, actually, because it's dealing with people. And in fact, I tend to digress too many times, but let me tell you this story. There's a coach called Bill Campbell. He's late now. He was a sports coach in the States and became a huge coach in the Silicon Valley. He was, people talk Steve Jobs, this Steve Jobs, that. Campbell was Steve Jobs' closest person, and he was a coach. He was his coach. And Campbell knew as much as George about IT and technical things, which means it's very little. But he understood people, and he understood issues around affirmation, EQ. And that's how he got the Steve Jobs of this world, the Eric Schmidt, to achieve the greatness that they achieved. But as I said earlier, you and I, if we don't read much, we wouldn't know anything about Campbell, because the success is not his. It's not his. It's the it's the employee who becomes the superstar. And so as we go through this, we understand our role. Just like a mother teaches their little children and they become superstars. It's our role is the mother. Let's look after our coaches, our clients.
We remain in the background.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Coach Chuma says, maybe it depends on what you are solving for between the coach and coachee. I'm not quite sure which point he was responding to.
Okay.
He says, maybe it depends on what you are solving for between the coach and coachee. I'm not sure whether you understand that, but maybe Coach Chuma could just expatiate which point in particular he was responding to. Unless you understood it, George.
I don't. I would rather that it be cleared. It's easier that way.
Okay. And then there is affirmation for you coming from Coach Fresh that you should not apologize. You are not digressing, but adding value. This is a top class session. Very nicely done. So so there's an affirmation, George. You are on the right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And then Coach Tolera says, do you know what? Okay, that was actually when you were engaging with your client. He says, you can ask a question. Do you know what you need to become a director? That's a good question, I think. That's a very good coaching question.
It is. What do you need? What skills do you need? What do you need to invest in?
Have you ever spoken to a director so that you know what they needed to become who they are as directors? I guess that's where the Coach Toleros is coming from.
Because as I said to you, it's one thing getting the academics right, but there are certain behaviors, certainly, that people look at. I mean, if you're in the pub every other day, zonged, and you're the brightest mind at the workplace, those behaviors are unlikely to attract directorship. And so it's things. So what do you need? And that's where a coach comes in. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about?
And Coach Chuma has just clarified his point. Coach George asserted that we don't need to dig what have been the challenges that brought you here as a coach. I think he's referring to the point we raised that it's about focused solutions, not wasting time going into the past. I think that is what he was saying.
Okay. Well, the OSKAR model focuses on on looking ahead, solution focus. But yes, in other coaching engagements, it may be necessary to find out why are you where you are, and having ascertained that, said, okay, so how do we move forward from there? Yes, definitely.
I guess we did address this last time, whereby we said that is exactly this point that Chuma is raising, to remind us that we are not discussing these models as absolute. We are saying that you have to know all these models, because in a particular situation, a person might need to be reminded what happened to get to where they are. In that case, then obviously you are not. You take the OSKAR model, you put it in your bag, you pull out maybe which model that works on people understanding where they are. Maybe challenging model, or clear model, whatever. But the whole idea is to say that the models are not just a hammer that we go around hitting every nail. But we are saying now, if you really want, you realize that the OSKAR model is what is going to take this person forward, especially in a high-performance environment. It's about producing results and not wasting time and giving excuses why we didn't hit the target last year. You may want not to give them that time to sit, because time is moving. So I guess that's a very good question, because we need to understand that every model is relevant for a particular type of a situation, right?
Yes, absolutely, and just also to say to support you there with these models. So OSKAR is OSKAR. In a discussion, you flow. It's a dance with the information coming through. You might actually find that, having talked about this outcome, etc., you jumping into a firm.
Yeah.
And you're picking info, and then going back. It's so there's no, because the moment you kind of like you go to the first floor, second floor, third floor to get to the 10th floor, you're going to run into a bit of a problem. Ideally, when you're coaching, be able to dance with the information that's coming through. Be curious, and you can see the eyes are lighting up here. Maybe let's dig a little bit deeper, and it comes out that he's talking a lot more around the affirmation here, or you're digging a bit more into the skills issue, and then you can always go back. But don't be caught in a trap of if it's grow, I've got to start with the G, the R, and the O-R.
Actually, George, talking about dancing with the information, at the college we used to talk about, if you want to, the simplified way of coaching is just dance with the client. You say dance with the information, you say dance with the client. Basically, observe and be fluid, and don't be too strict, too fixated. But those are nice terminologies I like using, and I think they just make the conversation of coaching very enjoyable, especially when we are aligned with the language. So great stuff, George. You can proceed. You wanted to spend a little bit more time on affirming and action.
Something I should have mentioned around the third rung there is to say, as we go through the where was I the know-how, they always say dig a little bit more about that, because once the guy has established the outcome where he wants, getting him fully equipped, the true soldier, with everything there, is very important, and you need to get that right. You don't want then, I want to be a director, and then you miss a huge chunk of what is necessary to get them in there. So this is the stage to dig. And sometimes it will take you a long time to you might actually finish a session without getting to a firm, etc., which is great, as long as you know you're pulling out what is necessary. Okay, so the next one is the affirmation stage, and it's providing positive reinforcement of what you have heard, reflecting back positive comments about some strengths and attributes that your coachee has revealed to you. So he's telling you what he has, and you reflecting back those positive comments and providing reinforcement. As I said earlier, please affirm this guy. Okay, so you want to, and how did you get that? I'm the best. I've won this award 3-4 times. Put an arm around his shoulder. I don't mean physically, but affirm this guy. Because at that stage, he is looking to you to help him cross this river. And so it's stuff like that. That's important. And then helping him to determine what small action or actions they will now take. So you could ask, helps to assess the current state, look for ways to improve. So if a guy has rated himself, let's say a 5, be 5, 4, 3. Go back a little bit and say, but how did you actually get there here? Oh, I was with this company, I came here and this, da. Try and understand a little bit more. And if he says to you he's an 8, also try and understand why he's rated himself that highly. Very important. So questions that would encourage the coach to open up and be something like, what are you doing now that is already working? Okay. So you want to be a production director. What are you doing now that your boss is happy about and giving you kudos? What makes it effective? Oh, it's effective because
it sounds like we are at this stage where you are demanding action, George. It speaks to the famous point of holding your client accountable, basically, right? In a nice way, to say, are you doing anything to achieve this, or you are just sitting and dreaming that it will fall on your laps?
It's for affirmation action. I tell you, if I had written this model, I would have actually had the action on its own. I'd have had an affirm on its own and action on its own. But it's affirm. It is what it is. It's affirm and action. So the two live in the same house, as it were. So you've affirmed the guy, you've listened to him. Now you're talking action. What small action or actions do we need to take? And for me, successful coaches get someone to act. Because, yes, it is the individual's responsibility to act. It can never be the coach's. It's his, and if he chooses not to act, then the whole investment is wasted, right? But this is where you must come in and say, so he says, what things can you do? And he gives you 30 things to do. Now, clearly nobody's going to be able, he's never going to do 30 things. So you're saying, okay, maybe what 2 things out of those 30 could we say? So now you're getting him to do bite-sized things that he's able to achieve. Because when if the company is paying the coach, he wants to impress, and so he wants to say, I can do 30 things. And as a coach, that's never going to happen. With his responsibilities, etc., that's never going to happen. So you want to come down to a place where, what can we do? What can we do? Let's write down all the 30. Yes, that's great to write them down. But what can we actually do? And really, that's for me. A good coach gets that right and gets someone to be excited. And does it mean you going back to that imagination picture to say, yeah, I mean, you see yourself as the production director flying across all over the world and what? But how do we? And then so that picture is always in the back of his mind. He's seeing these grand things. But to get to those grand things, they say the devil is in the detail, right? he's got to do those little things. He's got to do those little things.
Yeah. We spoke about this last week, and I'm glad it's coming out also here from OSKAR Coaching Model. And I see Coach Chuma has also stated it. The action, demanding action so that there can be a shift. Coach Chuma has stated there that the coaches must be able to review themselves on how they will achieve their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And however, as the coach, we should provide guidance. Absolutely. Because it is their program. It is their journey. We are there to guide and facilitate and hold them accountable. And in fact, this should be part of the contracting right at the beginning, that you agree with the coachee that one thing you are going to do is you're going to hold them accountable, because you know that it's only through actions that a shift will happen. And if you haven't done it, you may want to jump in later to say, listen, by the way, one thing we forgot to do is to hold each other accountable. We've got to do what we say we are going to do.
Yes. Ideally, put that in the contract. Make sure that in the contracting stage, the individual understands the state of play, that it is them to do it, with me as the cheerleader. Ensuring that that's so. In fact, going back to that Bob Proctor thing, and one of the programs that we work with, we talk about the knowing doing gap, the fact that a greater majority of people know a lot of things. They know, I know. So we take people on training courses to sell, to market, to do all sorts of things, and you wonder, how come they're not doing it? We've spent millions and millions of rands training these guys, but they're not doing it. And that gap it's so important for people to understand that nothing happens without action. And so we can put all these grand things, invest a lot of money, but at the end of the day, we want to be able to act and choose 1-2 small things to do. Act. And that's where success comes from.
Beautiful. So you say, George, if you were writing this model, you will separate affirmation and action.
Yeah, Sim, I tell you what, and as I say, thank you, but somebody supported me that when I say I digress and all that. The point, Sam, is, the majority of people never get affirmed. They rarely get affirmed. I mean, you hear managers blowing their top, this guy has not done this, has not done that, and then he does something great. And you're expecting the manager to pull him into the office and say, well done, John. No, they don't do that. They don't affirm people. And so when you're coaching an individual and you really are going to talk action, acknowledge what he's doing right. Hey, you're doing this right. Keep that up, and then move on to these are the things that we need to do. Because we respond positively to affirmation. And watch with your kids. That's how people get better. And so I would actually have a little bit of emphasis around that. Affirm those guys. And when you affirm him well as a coach, let me tell you something. And he becomes the director. Because he got so much value out of the affirmations that you did for him, you guaranteed he's going to pick up 1 or 2 of those habits and start affirming his own people. Because it helped play the role in getting him to where he got. Anyway, now I'm preaching a little. All right. So I'll just talk with you guys. Hopefully I can hear you, Sam. So I was saying then the questions that you were action one would be, what are you doing now that is already working? What makes it effective? Which areas would you like to see change? And how can this be accomplished? And then obviously talking about that one step. What is your first step to move you forward? Okay, so that takes care then of the A part of OSKAR. We've talked about the outcome. We've talked about know-how, the skills, and finally we talked about affirm and action. So the last one is the review stage. So this normally will take place in a separate session, because by then the hour is gone, or the 2 hours is gone. Because this is sufficient time needs to pass, right? To allow the coachee to reflect on what has transpired and the progress that he has made. So that takes place. But what is it? What is the review stage? Then that stage should recommend the actions that form the basis of another cycle of OSKAR, right? And that R is exactly where have we been, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and that whole process of inquiry. And if I could also say that coaching is a process of inquiry, right? It's a process of inquiry and personal discovery. So you're building your client's level of awareness and of responsibility, and you're providing the client with the structure, support, and feedback. That's what coaching is all about. And so as we review, we're going back in terms of where have we been, what have we achieved, and anything else that will fall under the review stage. Okay. Now, unfortunately, I can't hear Sam, but Sam tells me he can hear me. Sam says he can hear me. And thank you, Doc. Actually, Doc Magisa, he said the affirmation is a form of positive psychology. In fact, you can push the coachee out of the comfort zone by just affirmation. Okay, you can push the coachee out of comfort zone by just affirmation. All right. Sam, I can't hear you. But that's that. But what I would like really is to hear more comments, inputs from you. Something I meant to mention in all this is what makes it coach able. Okay. Yeah, as I was saying that the work of the coach it really is to create that trust and safety, and particularly in the workplace where there could be suspicion around why am I being asked to be coached, and so to get the individual to really feel that they can speak freely and confidentially, and this is for my good. So that's creating trust and safety is absolutely important. And then listening actively. I find it's a gift from God, really, to be able to listen. And I'm working on it every day. Sam,
Yeah.
some people have it and others like us, we have to work at it to listen actively. And when we're talking about listening actively, we're talking about the coachee is saying things, but there are things that he is not saying that you also listen
Mm.
to. What isn't he saying that is, and then to feel that you may bring it up, and things like you have us because sometimes it's more energy shifts, isn't it?
Yes.
And non-verbal cues, behaviors. The guy leans forward, pushes back. The energy shifts. It's seeing those. That's listening actively. So it's not just
Yes.
what he is saying.
Otto Sharma speaks of the generative listening in his the UCARE model, which
Mm.
he actually says that go beyond active listening, go and listen generatively, which what you are talking about, George, meaning that you have to be fully present and
Mm.
with all your head, heart, and gut, and sense the emotions and what you feel and bring that out because that
Mm.
is a result of you listening generatively and also empathically. Is that the right way? Being with empathy is
With
one
empathy,
thing to
yes.
hear is to hear somebody, but it's another thing to put yourself in their shoes and say, "I can imagine what you're going through." And so that is basically the point you are raising, and I'm glad you bring. And that's the competency, right?
It is a competence listening actively, but it's such a powerful thing. If I think somebody says the greatest gift you can give anybody is to listen to them. It's when somebody can listen. As a coach, you're seeing body movement, you're acknowledging those things, and if need be commenting on them. That's how you create a safe space. The individual feels, I can open up here and talk about my ambitions. I want to be the production director, and they can talk about it freely. But you got to play a part as the coach. You really must hear them. You must hear this person, listen to them
Mm,
active.
beautiful, beautiful. What else have you brought out of your research that you want to use to round up the model presentation before I take you to the checking out part of our session, George?
Well, I don't. Coaching is supposed to be a simple, not simple. It's a doing thing. I don't want to make it too much of an academic exercise. But as I said, those competencies become very, very important. And as I said right at the start, ensuring that you're contracting on the right thing, understanding what does he want, and being clear, so that as he walks out, or as she walks out, very clear in their mind that this is where I'm going, this is what I need to do. When you finish the engagement, somebody must be able to walk back and say, I got value from this thing because now I know where I'm going, and obviously the rest is up to them. But good coaching clearly gets the person to want to go and do this thing. And if you've done that and you've achieved that, then that's why you're a coach.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I
beautiful,
think
great,
that's
great
really all
stuff.
I have. Huh?
Oh, lovely. Can you reflect a bit, George, on what you have shared with us, and tell me how does it make you feel so far, having engaged with this topic in your research, now delivered it,
Mm.
What are takeaways for you from the conversation with us today?
And can I also link that with the other colleagues, the presentations that they made, and that thread that runs through about the why. Why are we in this coaching engagement? And so, in my model, Oscar, outcome is big. It's huge. But in every other model, wherever it comes, it might not be starting at the start, but wherever it comes, that is and a coach's job, as I reflect, is to get your client to see it clearly in his mind. It must be so clear to them that there is absolutely no doubt about what it is, why we're in this conversation. If you do that well, then the rest really, Sam, is yeah, sure, it's important to affirm this, to know the skills and whatever. But if you've really done that well, I think the journey is much easier, much smoother. And so for me, as I reflect, get the outcome, get the person to understand what it is they want.
I have a feeling that if you have done that very well, especially as it relates to the coaching program, the entire coaching program, the rest of the sessions is about you holding the space. Because then it's almost like they are marching, they are galloping on their journey, and they just want you to hold the I don't know what you call it when you are riding on a horse. You loosened up those things. We call it the domo in my language. I don't know what they call it in English. The horse is allowed to gallop.
Let's use your language.
Only if it misses the direction you will pull to where you want it to go. But then once it starts on the right track, you loosen up those things.
That's right.
Then, yeah. So that's coaching works a lot with analogies. So that is an analogy I would like to use.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what was confirmed for you, George, throughout this conversation? This is my checking out now, and I just want to take you through a few pointers. Before you started this session, you have been having some sleepless nights, and I'm sure you have been thinking a lot about what to bring across. So now that you look back to this conversation, what was confirmed for you?
I think coaching is very much a doing exercise. It's when you do. The structures are important to know. Oscar, grow, and all that. But it's very much a doing. And so the more I read into it, the more I see myself sitting in front of somebody. Then what would I do? How would I get somebody to tell me the skills they need to see it in a man? So it's more, how do I conduct the orchestra from the background and it plays so well, but nobody sees me. They just hear this music playing and they don't see me, because that's, if you do that well as a coach, that the individual feels that this is their journey, they've achieved it. Yes, you were a part of it, but this is what I have done. And so the better you can do that, I think that's for me, that would be the satisfaction. Really, not to be part of the journey and not be part of the journey. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Yeah. Had you not done this research, do you think you would have shifted a bit in terms of the knowledge that you have acquired from this OSKAR model?
Well, I must want to say, by reading into it, obviously, there's a lot more I picked out of this than before I started. And in fact, as I say, this whole series has forced me to read on all these, some of them I didn't even know that I'm a coach. And so going through them and understanding, there's a theme that comes through, that at the end of the day, it's the show, it belongs to the client. You are doing the best for them to get them to where they want. That's the theme. And your role is to be as proficient as possible around understanding this entire space of coaching so that you can add value to somebody.
What is a new practice that you will adopt from now onwards as a result of this exercise, from researching and presenting and having conversation with us? Is there any new thing that you are going to do as Coach George going forward?
From the OSKAR model, from I like the OSKAR model, Sam, because of its emphasis on really starting with the outcome, starting with the end in mind. It has its shortcomings, as you and I know, in that the guy must be wanting to go on this journey. And if it is someone who's violently opposed to coaching, then the OSKAR model is really not the ideal one. And so, clearly, if I'm going to be getting someone who is so and so and is not too sure, I wouldn't run with it. I would find something else.
Great stuff.
Learning doesn't end, Sam. I've learned a lot. And I'll continue to learn as I go.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the more we do this, the more I really realize the power of that commitment that I've shared with you earlier on, learning through curiosity. I think it's the right attitude. It's a right approach. I don't think we can ever reach a point where we are too sure that we know it all. The moment you think like that, that's when you stop learning. And it just affirms the business case of running these talk shows. Obviously, we are doing it every week now because we needed to cover all this model. Going forward, post-November, we will do it once a month. So we'll have a much more time to really come to the forum with much more richer content, and we will look forward to a month.
If I could wander again into the other things, as I said, I was in marketing, and when a brand is at its peak, that's when you need to throw money after it, and ensure that it stays top of mind. You don't get a brand at the peak and then everyone walks and goes on holiday, because you turn around, there's a new player in town and he's taking your market share. So this is the thing about coaching. You're forever learning to add value. And so with brands, every day you are thinking of, Coca-Cola has been around for years, but if you hear the amount of money they throw at it and to keep the brand alive, relevant. Yeah. And so using that experience, if you take it into coaching, it's exactly, you have to keep at it.
Beautiful. Before we go away, there's a question from Coach Chuma. Coach George, when do you decide which model to use, and how long can that decision be made?
Okay, so practically what would happen, let's say me and Coach Schumer, I'm going to be coaching Coach Schumer. We will have a chemistry session. So we have a chemistry session. We talk, who are you? What do you do? And you're kind of listening to this, to him, where he is, where he wants to go, and things that. At that stage, you're beginning to say in your head, I think with him, we need to focus a lot more of what is the outcome? What does he actually want? Or a lot more on issues around skill. That chemistry session is very important. Because you're asking him, so what are you expecting out of this engagement with me? This is what I want to do. And you're listening. I think around that time, but as I say, don't lock yourself into a specific model. Don't say, now I have him, I'm going to use OSKAR now right through with him. I'm very much one of those, yes, I think OSKAR will be relevant here. Let's start with the outcome and see how it goes. And be flexible around it. And of course, if everything happens the way you want it, then you'd go OSK and you're doing it. But in coaching conversations, generally doesn't happen that way, eh?
Absolutely. And I've obviously, Coach Schumer missed the previous other sessions, but the episodes are there on the podcast, Coach Schumer. If you go to, just put it in the chat, COMETSA Radio Podcast.com, you will find all the previous models presentation by colleagues here. And I think that will help a lot. But we'll keep on coming back to them in the future, because we are saying that these are just tools that are used to simplify coaching. They are not coaching, they are just tools, and how we use them, it depends on the circumstances, and it differs from individual to individual. That was our Coaches Learning Forum. My name is Sam Timmer. I was your host, and this is COMETSA Radio Podcast, The Mind, the Journey, the Destiny. We apply our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Our programs are based on the principle of the idea. We inform and entertain. We develop and educate. We empower and support. We associate and network. That is the idea. Thank you very much for tuning in.